So, almost 2 weeks ago, Charlie Kirk was unalived in Utah.
I have to use that language, otherwise TikTok won't allow me to upload this because they're stupid.
And in some ways, I still can't believe it happened because it's like, I never thought in a million years it would be him, just because it's like, out of all the list of people I could possibly think of, this kind of thing happening to, he was not even in the top 5. And obviously, I'm not going to say any names because I do not want to be accused of inciting violence or inspiring anybody. So, I'm just going to put it out there. So, the day it happened, I was on my way to work. My dad texted me. He's like, Charlie Kirk was... Something happened to Charlie Kirk. And I know my dad would not lie to me about this. So I Googled it, and sure enough, yep, it happened. He's in the hospital. No word on his condition. And I'm thinking he'll probably pull through. And then, I don't remember the exact timeline, but pretty much around the time they confirmed that he was no longer with us, I got a text from my dad saying that the same. I think the fact that this was on video and it was seen by probably almost everybody that could possibly see it, and the fact, I think, like, there was a spectrum of reactions. You obviously had people celebrating, you had people throwing up, crying their eyes out, and you had some people who were so desensitized that they were like, I think the fact that my personal reaction was like, it was like, oh shit, but it wasn't like a celebration, and it wasn't like I'm crying my eyes out. It was just like, because I've seen some carnage, something on the side of the road, or something that ran into the middle of the road and a car got him. Not exactly the same as what happened to Charlie Kirk, but it does desensitize you. Now, personally, I think the reactions to what happened to him are really annoying. You got people who act like you can't make jokes about what happened to him, you can't celebrate it, or they'll try to send the government after you. They'll try to get you banned from the internet and social media. And, heck, even just criticizing and saying, I wasn't a fan of him. I didn't like what he had to say, but, I don't condone what happened to him. For them, that is just grounds for, censorship. The fact you got members of Congress wanting to get people banned from the internet entirely forever just because they said something reckless shows that you don't have freedom of speech. And the people who criticize those members of Congress have no room to talk, because a great deal of them in 2016 and, the mid-2010s and even before then and even now often would say, freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences. And they're not wrong. It is not illegal to make jokes about what happened to Charlie Kirk or to make jokes about marginalized people, but it's not freedom. The freedom of consequences doesn't work because there's no constitutional right to have a job or a social media account. They are private companies, and they have the right to associate with you, to decide if they want to associate with you or not. And as far as I'm concerned, the freedom of speech angle needs to be more universal, to say, look, yes, that joke about a minority is repugnant, and yeah, that person's a piece of garbage, but they do have the right to say it, and we have the right to say we want nothing to do with you. Just like how you can say, oh, if you celebrated what happened to Charlie Kirk, I won't associate with you. I think we can avoid using the state to police hurt feelings, whether your joke is about a marginalized person or Charlie Kirk. I think the martyrdom is the most ridiculous aspect of this. These people are acting like he's MLK. Well, I was going to say the third, but MLK actually has a son named MLK the third. But the point being, they act like he was the second coming. When all he did was debate people at universities, occasionally other places, and sometimes he picked the lowest hanging fruit to debate, and sometimes even then he still didn't do that well in the debates. Whether you agree with his opinion or not, sometimes the presentation alone can decide if people are persuaded by what you're saying. And I think we all need to understand that. It isn't just what you said or if you cited sources, it's how you come across. But hey, you know what? Props to him for having those debates. I personally think debates are a great thing when they're formatted. We have agreed to guidelines as to how much time we have and the format. That's great. I mean, I'm autistic, so naturally I just love having guidelines for like how we approach a debate, but that's neither here nor there. But, you know, I think even though he only is no longer with us for almost 2 weeks now, I think it is still okay. Heck, even on the day he was no longer with us, I think one has the right to say, look, you know, he may no longer be with us, but, you know, I'm still going to criticize his views or his opinions. And, you know, a lot of these people are whining about certain things he said being taken out of context. And I personally think my response to that would be, you know, let's have a list of the full quotes, number one. Number two, maybe, just maybe, you know, because here's the thing, the MAGAs are like, you know, saying these people are speaking recklessly when celebrating his unaliving, but the man spoke. If it's so easy to take you out of context, you might want to consider formatting what you're saying, because you know when he said that black women didn't have the brain processing power to be taken seriously, and everyone's like, well, he was specifically talking about Michelle Obama, Ketanji Brown Jackson, among there was a third one, but I can't remember her name. You know, and it's like, well, that's still rather racist thing to say, given that. You know, he was saying things like, you know, DEI hire. Personally, when I hear someone call someone a DEI hire, I immediately, fairly or not, I do think they're racist for saying it. I personally, I'm for meritocracy. Your identity should not play a role in if you get a job or not. And personally, if I was told, yeah, we hired you because you're a white man, I would be offended, just because it's like, why should that play a role in it or not? You know. I'll have to do a separate video on how I think the hiring process should go. So if you lean left or right, I promise you, I think you're gonna like how my idea would be there. But I think it'd be a lot more objective than affirmative action or diversity, equity, and inclusion. But the thing is, people have got to understand that in the political arena, whether you're an activist or a politician, there is at least a few people that will celebrate when you're no longer with us. When Margaret Thatcher died in 2013, there were open celebrations of her death. When John F. Kennedy was no longer with us, there were open celebrations of what happened to him, mainly in Texas because he was Catholic. When Ronald Reagan died, there were still people who celebrated him no longer being with us. George H.W. Do I have to go on here? Whether they're in the United States, Great Britain, or elsewhere, there's always going to be at least a few people who are glad you're not here. And if you're really unpopular, there's a few people that are sad you're not with us. But let's not be a bunch of snowflakes about these jokes. And I think that, how about a truce here? No more trying to get people fired for things they said online, no matter how tasteless they are. Now, if they are actually inciting violence, then sure. But you have to prove that it's imminent. I mean, a lot of these people were saying there was no imminent risk of violence when Donald Trump lied about the 2020 election, even though there was plenty of evidence to the contrary. But these MAGAs have proven overall they don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in freedom, period. Basically, Donald Trump could be, you know, rebrand his ideology as the next coming of the Austrian painter, and these people, to own the libs, would unironically go with it because it's a cult of losers and idiots. And what happened with Jimmy Kimmel? Mr. Kimmel lied about MAGA. He lied about the guy who did this to Charlie Kirk. That's not a crime. Well, it was in the FCC guidelines. You guys say F you to the government. You won't do what the government tells you all the time. And you know what? More people need to do that. But it's not the role of the state to police and fact check. Whether it's Joe Biden wanting the internet companies to fact check what people say about the vaccine, or Donald Trump wanting to police people making jokes about having Charlie Kirk, or using the FCC as a political weapon. And it is against freedom of speech to try to deport people for making jokes about Charlie Kirk or disagreeing with the government. You know, I'm not saying all MAGAs are racist, but it's increasingly difficult to say that just because so many of them justify some of the worst things this president has done. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to still say they're not all racist, but man, they make it really hard for me to say that. And I know one of my friends is not in a position where he can actually debate me live, but I will most certainly entertain that phone call when you have the earliest opportunity.